Hello, welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 151 for June 14, 2024. Today we'll talk about Plantain App version 1.26 and anything else you want to talk about. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plantain App, and we have with us Patrick Anderson, who is technical success manager for Plantain App. Between the two of us, and mostly from Patrick, we'll have right answers for you by the end of the day. This is an event we do every week or most weeks. Well, I think we're going to take off July 5th, but we get together, talk about Plantain App, talk about the advances, the coding, low coding, and so we're glad you're with us. We record all these, put them out on YouTube so you can get to every one of them, youtube.com/plantainapp. And if you subscribe and hit the alarm bell, you'll know as soon as we post them, which is usually later that day or the next day. We run this agenda. We say hello, anyone new to the group, welcome to introduce yourself. But then we go around the campfire. We always do first call or any submitted topics. But then we hit some or all of these other items. After an hour or so, we'll go into Afterglow. That's where we turn the recording off, raise a virtual adult beverage, and enjoy each other for a few more minutes. So do engage with us. If you have noise going on behind you, mute is great. But I don't know, noise canceling, I rarely hear any extra noise on this. Anyway, you can submit questions, topics in advance. Use that QR code. With that, good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dale.
Patrick took good care of you last week while I was away.
Yes, he did.
Excellent. All right, we, as promised, we start with first call. So what's going on?
I've got one.
Yes, sir.
It's I guess ancillary to Planet App, but Action Forms started with the add to report checkbox for every field, and that's how you got your submissions from a form by by pulling that information. So you got this huge table of I think it's the reports table. I'm not positive what it is, but here's my situation. I've got a an old form. It's been collecting for years, and there's a lot of fields. And so each of those fields, when we created it, we had the checkboxes on. So all of those fields are in there in the database. But also when the form was submitted, then all of that information was put into a PDF. So it's a job application system. So all of that information is actually stored in the PDF. What I'm interested in doing now, I've just created an entity for the pertinent information, like the person's name, the position that they are looking for, and finally the location of the PDF, the location of the resume that they uploaded, if they have other files. So just a small amount of information is in the entity. And now what I'd like to do is, now that we've collected some information and we're going to get rid of the old, we want to get rid of all of that data. Is there a procedure that I could follow, like just doing a SQL delete that won't break anything to get rid of all that old report stuff? So if I, like, for instance, did a delete where the module ID was the module ID of the form, with that, and the date is less than a certain date, would that basically get rid of all of those entries in the table?
I think the simple answer is yes. You can, if you need us to, I was going out, we could go out and take a look at the table, but there's, because I thought you were going a slightly different direction, wanting to extract the information out of that. But yeah, if it's all about delete, it's safe to delete that those records out of there. There's a related table that has the individual fields, and I believe that's set up so that it's a cascading delete. So if you delete the records out of that reports table, it deletes the related records out of the report fields table. So yes, you can do that. And then I assume turn the save to reports off if you no longer need it, right?
Yeah, I thought I would start there going into the form, deleting or unchecking all of the fields so it's no longer storing the information. And then when they're satisfied, we've collected enough of the new job applications. They don't want to keep the old ones. They we could just we could just do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is a setting where you can turn it off globally so you don't have to do it field by field.
Oh, that would be helpful.
Let's bring that up. Enable reports. Here, if you go into settings and uncheck enable reports, that will just stop it for all.
Oh, fantastic. That's easy.
Yep. Yeah, and we have um, no immediate plans to remove this functionality, but I think we are working on a new Forms 2.0 functionality, and I believe this is among the things that would be not carried forward into the Forms 2.0. So there's going to be some amount of compatibility, but certain things are not going to be there. So, and I think this is one of them. The default collection of information was very handy when we didn't have entities built in, so it made data handling possible. Forms could do things without and remember data without any effort on the part of the developer. But now it can be done through entities with a little work on the part of the developer. Patrick,
Cool.
am I telling the truth here?
Yes, as far as I know, you are. Yep.
Thank you. Good. Did you have any interest in migrating the data that you had from the form? Or you're just going to just collect new and don't worry about it?
It might be interesting to do some kind of an archive of the information.
I just in the same I don't remember the exact name of the table, but just take a look when you're looking for that reports table.
I got
There's
them.
one called reports fields, which makes it very easy to get a hold of the.
It's ABT action form underscore reports and ABT action form underscore report to fields. The name of the tables.
Because otherwise you have to parse the fields out. On the reports table, they're all there, but you've got some parsing to do on the other one, or in combination, those two can make it very easy to retrieve data.
Okay, I'll look through there.
Good.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Second call. First call. We can always jump back if somebody has a topic, but the main thing that's going on here at Plantain App is, and I hope you got an email that we've released Plantain App version 1.26. That happened yesterday. Did everybody get an email? Did anybody get an email?
Yes, I got one.
Yep, I got one.
Good.
Yes, me too.
Me too.
Lovely. And hopefully only one, my emailer that I can't lean back in my chair. Nobody's letting me be lazy today. Yes, hopefully that's better. I'm sorry. It's a little nerve-wracking to push the button to send out 7,000 or 8,000 emails, and it's my emailer now that's doing this. So I say mine, something that I've been working on developing, and so is always wanting to make sure we get one and only one to the right people. So good. depending on what else we get into, I have a site that needs to be upgraded to version 1.26, so we could walk through that today as well. But I don't want to hijack if there's any better topic to talk about. So a little bit blank slate, anybody? And while you're thinking about that, Patrick, I haven't yet listened to the episode you hosted last week. Did we get into playbooks at all?
We did not, no.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure the topics that were on my on these slides,
Yeah.
I didn't want to recover them.
Yep. Had a lively discussion last week, so didn't make it.
Good. Maybe you should be the host. We'll get lively discussions.
Everyone was being kind to me, I think. Lots of participation.
There was a couple of feature requests that were put out here, and so we'll cover those real quick. If you're interested, you can vote on those. I'll drop the link here to everyone. If you're interested, but the couple of new ones, there was one here about color code the actions on a workflow. So right now, if you go into a workflow, it's all black and white, and so this was about making that screen more informative by using color. I have no idea if the underlying we use a engine to from a different developer or company that um, displays all of those boxes. So I have no idea whether color is possible. I suspect it is. So this seems like a very good suggestion to me. And so I was talking about whether or not having the actions have different colors, and also being able to show which ones are disabled or have a condition on them. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and I will vote it up. The other one is about customizable manual layouts. And so in Action Form, there's the ability, we have an engine that lets you place fields and it's drag and drop, but it has, I mean, it does what it does. It's a very good bootstrap layout, but if you want something very fine-tuned and controlled, you can go to manual and do your own. So Anthony was suggesting being able to build that layout by way of tokens rather than doing the layout to build up a layout, which is an interesting idea. I think that I read that this is one of those things. The manual layout is part of what will not be brought forward into the Forms 2.0 into our next iteration of Forms. So I don't know. This would only be relevant to the current one, and as such, maybe has a low likelihood of being developed. Do I have that right? Again,
Yes. The only thing I would add is I guess it's being removed in favor of a much more flexible ability to lay out your fields by default. So
good.
That's the intention. Yep.
And since I've mentioned it twice, I'll also mention the way that we're doing Forms 2.0 is it will not be a replacement for Action Form. It'll coexist side by side with Action Form, and you'll get to choose when to migrate to it. At least, I mean, I have no idea how long Action Form will continue, but I just want to point out you're not going to get it forced on you as a default. One day you wake up and you click the button and it's there. No, you'll have to migrate to it, and most things will translate. But and now I'm in all that I'm speaking from meetings I've attended. I've not actually seen the new product yet, so but that's my understanding.
Yeah, and to clarify that, in Dale, once again, correct me if you think this is incorrect, but I think that you don't have to migrate all your forms at one time. Like you could migrate a form, but you'll still have both products available to you, and so you can migrate one form.
or start with a new form and leave your old
Yep.
ones in place. And so it'll be a gradual over time thing. But
Yep.
so I don't want to panic anybody to say that our faithful action form, which is probably the first product I use, I imagine most of you, is going away. Don't panic about that. And having closed the feature request, apparently there's a new one added. So we can do this real time. Ben has asked about data connections, the ability to add API URLs as a connector type that can be used elsewhere. Interesting. Makes sense to me. I think I saw something similar to this recently, but that's an interesting to be able to retrieve. Connector type SQL, because I think it can be used as a action. You can connect to a API for a action grid.
Yeah, I think he's saying that, and you're here if you want to comment on it, but I think you're saying that you would want the API to be predefined, so that all you have to do is just drop it in and not do anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's predefined as one of the connectors and we have the ability to define what parameters are expected to be sent to it, as well as the data format that's coming back, then the connector itself could be like on a drop down for data sources, for action grids, for SQL action commands, where you just select the connector type, pass it the parameters it's expecting. It will go out, run that, return the data, and then when you get the data back, it's in some sort of fashion already predefined as a list or whatever that you can just immediately then consume. You don't have to go in and do any additional workload to consume that data or parse it or anything like that. The connector itself has all the information needed to be able to perform that prior. I just figured it'd be, a nice little addition for low coding and whatnot, so that the system can handle some of that. And like you said, Patrick, just predefining it so that it could just be used anywhere and someone doesn't have to remember the URL structure, the call, what parameters have to be sent to it, so forth, so on.
Okay. All righty. Okay, so fork in the road. We can talk about well, still, if somebody has an issue they'd like to bring up, but that's one. But then we can do playbooks, or we can do a real-time upgrade to 126. Any preferences? Anybody see a 126?
I'd like to see 126.
Right, you've twisted my arm. Here we go. I discovered recently that our knowledge base hadn't been updated. We've done most of our internal systems already, but it shows up with updates. We've got the update to 126. We've got release notes. So this is where you'd come to do an upgrade. If you look at release notes, it's just going to take you to the documentation, and you can get to release notes for 126. And so there's a big long list. As most of you know, we've been more than a year on working on this version. So we've got a big long list of things: breaking changes, features, cosmetic, all kinds of stuff. So lots of good stuff, and I always advise that you take a look at the breaking changes. Those are the things that you really have to think about. But I'm pretty sure that that's not going to bother us here, or at least that's what I'm going with. From a practice standpoint, we're already backed up. I am going to, I clicked the update button and it brings me to the change log, which we see this same kind of information right here on the screen. So you can read it and search it and look at it as well. 112 different things to read carefully. And then you click the button. Now, I just want you to get the whole experience here. So,
okay.
Patrick was trying to stop me. I thought it was going to stop. I thought it was going to tell me, no, you can't do that. And we're getting.
Yeah, not until you get to a higher version of 1.25. So this is actually a good it's a good thing to put out there, is that whether or not you're stopped, you should be updating all of your hotfixes for 125 before you upgrade to 126. So that change, Dale, that forces you to update hotfixes is unfortunately a later version of 125 than what this site has right now.
So new policy. We're going with the Plant and App will force you to install everything before advancing to the next version. And the theory is that if you're on 125 and some low version of 125, by installing the hotfixes, you get to the same point that everybody else is before going to the next version, so that we don't have it's impossible for us to test every scenario of how if you install this hotfix but not that hotfix, and so we have such a variation of content across systems. There's no way for us to test the upgrade path. By forcing you to upgrade everything, it's a small step that you would take only during the updates. You don't have to take all the hot fixes as you use it, but when you get into this mode of you're going to go from 125 to 126, you advance all the way on 125 and then go to 126. So it's going to be a very small burden to you to do that, and the benefit is reliability. So I mistakenly forgot, and so we're
I think we should.
prevented.
I think we should see what happens. Yeah. But yeah, and I'm ready to click the restore if we get in the situation that we need to do that.
Good.
I think this update, we should have some conditions, default conditions. If we click all of them and click install, the platform should install in the order. I mean, instead of writing the order of installing, maybe it's better to put a condition for automatically installed in that order.
Meaning the hotfixes right now we have in version 125 we had a lot of you have to do this before doing that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
instead of writing that list of things to do, maybe platform auto doing platform doing this automatically.
Yeah, we're working on that. Yeah, that's that definitely that's our ideal, and it's something we're working on. The updates process is going to get better and better, and we've made some improvements already, and we're going to make more in 1.27.
Yes, we absolutely agree with you that providing written instruction is not as good as just the system doing the right thing for upgrades. So again, I made reference to the part where we have this update cycle has been very long, and just the fact that it has been so long, more than a year, has caused us this kind of problem, that we tried to do some things in the middle of version 125. We changed the structure of some things that required you must do this before you do that. And where typically we do that in a full version release. So, and then again, just kind of working through history, at 125 was also the time we encountered for the first time our versioning getting above 99, which cost us, we had some things built in that said that never anticipated numbers higher than 99. So 1.25.105, for example. So we got ourselves into several bits of trouble in this that we hope to never come up again. So yeah, getting a lot of agreement. So keep it simple is, I think, what we're seeing. So oddly enough, this says it came up to version 1.26 without a problem, and so I'm glad for that.
I mean, yeah, and it's still possible there might be some things that are not quite right, but yeah, it does look like it was successful.
Dale, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I think we're at 121 right now. I just want to clarify, do we need to make sure that we've installed all the hot fixes for up to that version before we move to the next version?
I recommend
Because I think we were under the assumption, or Jerry was anyway, that when you install the new version, it automatically applied the hot fixes were in the newer version.
It does. The answer is both, but in either path should work up until version 125. But from a recommendation standpoint, here's the next higher version always includes all of the code from the previous versions. So
Right.
So if you go from 121 to 122, regardless of how you get there, you're going to get all the code. The issue has to do with migrations. There's things that we move around internally, some small, some larger, but we talking about our data tables, the items that we place on your system. So for the same reason that I was describing why we moved to in version 125 enforcing that you go install all hotfixes, that's the same recommendation that I would make, right? If you're at version 121, you want to go to 122, you're all backed up. Installing all the hotfixes is generally a very small step and gives you the benefit that now you're the same as you're on the expected path with no variations. So I would say it's slightly safer to install all the hotfixes and then jump the version. But prior to 125, we never enforced it before, and it should work, right?
Okay, but when you get to 125, you're saying you definitely need to install the hot fixes before you try to do the
Again,
upgrade to
that's
126.
the safest path. We, as you just saw, we didn't enforce it at the beginning of 125, and it works. But there's a certain amount of question that I have as to whether I didn't take the recommended path, and so, but then after 125, we're going to enforce it. So when you're trying to go from 126 to 127, there won't be any choice. You'll have to take all the hotfixes before it will go to 127.
And if
Okay.
you're also within 125, if you're updated to a later version of that builder, and assuming your updates page has been replaced correctly, so there's a couple variables there, it would force you to do the hotfixes.
Okay.
Again, the recommended path is yes, install them. And the path that we're going to enforce in the future is you will have to enforce them, but we're not enforcing them in all cases yet.
Okay, got it.
So we have 126 installed. Let's see what we got here. We have our general, our license looks good. That's this here. What can we see? So the next step would be testing to make sure the site works as expected. And so we need to be able, for example, this is a heavily search boost based thing. We have our knowledge base that has about AI. Can we view articles? It looks like it's, yeah, it's taking us to things. So looks like it's on the surface working pretty well. Let's go to an incognito.
Something else I just checked, Dale, that I'm surprised about is that the like I looked at the updates page, the hotfixes tab, and the changes that I'd expect to be there are there. So that means that the system tokens were created correctly and the page was replaced correctly. So that's good.
For those who, just to kind of level set on that, the pages here that are provided, many of the pages that are provided within the Plant and App configuration menu are like this functionality comes from, it's low code, it's Plant and App. So we're using our product to within our product. The SQL console in the same way. This is an action form and some content. There's many of these forms are forms and listings. Many of these pages are served by our low code. And so part of our installation process is that these pages get deployed when we go to a new version. So instead of it dropping a bunch of new code on your system, or in addition to all the code that it drops on, it's dropping on new pages for these things. And in early 125, we didn't reliably do that. And now we are reliably doing that. These pages will get created and updated automatically. So that's what Patrick was referring to. We take a look at, by looking at these updates pages and, for example, looking at hotfixes and seeing that new buttons like install from URL are there or check for updates are there, we know that this is a newer page. Did I explain that right, Patrick?
Yes.
Great. So it was a leap forward for us to use our product in our development. It speeds the development and of the product along, but we needed to reliably deploy them, which took us a couple of versions to get right. Okay, so workflows. Just reminder that there is both a new view and an old view, but our I'm going to flip to the new view. It's very similar, but has functionality like the code, the IntelliSense type activity and some editing to make sure that you fill in all the blanks that need to be filled in. So the window looks a little bit different. But there's new actions like these context to JSON actions. But the look and feel is a little different. Also the saving speed is incredibly faster. Remind me, Patrick, does that just apply to the new UI or is it both?
I believe it's both.
So in the past, when you created a workflow and you click the button, it would and the larger your system, meaning the larger number of objects within your low code, the longer it would take, and now it's incredibly fast. So that's a great enhancement. Yeah. Is there anything anybody has been particularly looking for and wants to take a look at in 126? I can't remember if this was out in 125 or not, but this is a nice new feature that normally you would set a token value like results and give it a value. With this turned on, you have the ability to use a token within the token name. So you can, if n has a value of 0, this would create results 0, result 1. So that's a much more dynamic feature if you need to do that kind of development.
So Dale, I think I remember when that was a feature request or there was something like it. I remember voting for it and I'm very happy to see that. It's going to come in handy.
You know, that's a really good note. We should find that feature request and make sure that it's marked as completed. Yep. So what's the upgrade? Since I'm doing the upgrade, you know, we did, but before this, before I clicked the button, I did a backup so I could restore both the file system and the database if necessary. And that's a recommended step. You're right. You're not going to want to install an upgrade, really even hot fixes, without a backup or a restore plan in place. You do the installation. The next step is to test, and then make sure that it's functional, and then you can let your users back in if you've blocked users. Let's take a look at thinking about features. We've got this new feature that include in dashboard. If you're not if people aren't accessing articles by way of APIs, you can turn that off, and that will remove the endpoints from APIs. So that's a nice new feature that by default doesn't change, but I think new entities it will be off. So if you are doing a new entity, it's off. There's no read. Basically, we're trying not to hurt anybody by turning them off automatically, but from new entities going forward, you'll have to explicitly turn them on.
Until I wasn't sure if you said or not that if you an existing entity, if you turn it off, it will remove your generated APIs as well.
Correct. So
yeah.
Let's take a look at that. We have article status. There's an API for article status that was generated automatically, and it's both here as the post, get, put, delete, and then there's probably an article status, get article statuses. So if I go to entities and look at article status, and I feel quite safe that nobody is doing an API call, we haven't allowed any API calls against this. If I turn off API access, hit save and override, when we go back and look at APIs, that should now be gone. So Mark is calling out favorite features. We'll look at those too. So thanks for that. So now article status is no longer listed, and the get article status is no longer listed. So you can reduce the number of APIs significantly, and probably another way to I'm sorry, when these get created, I'll just point out when APIs get created automatically, the security on them is set to limited. It's a secure setting that says that they have to access with a JWT, which is a username password kind of a thing. So this is one way to look and assure yourself that you're not turning off an API that you published and gave somebody outside of your organization access to. So if you know you're not using it and you know that nobody else has access to it, that's a good way to know that you can safely turn it off. Of course, if you turn it off and somebody screams, you can always turn it back on again. So does that make sense about APIs? Mark has called out on one of our actions that the execute actions, that see in the new view, it's saying please add at least one action. We're starting to get these enforcements so that you don't make mistakes on this. So but there's an on error section here that did not used to be here. So if anything goes wrong, if any of the actions throw an error above, it's going to jump down into the on error section, and then it will give you access to what the exception was, the type, the message. So you would have various ways to know what went wrong and either report it or handle it depending on what development you want to do. So that's a nice new one. Send email action was another one. Which has enhanced error handling for send email actions. What was the enhancements in here?
Okay, so I'll click on it and see what it says.
So learn.plananapp.com is our documentation site. And so we have our release notes, and so we can search for.
It says users can define a set of actions to execute if an error occurs. Exception type, exception message. Previously only available in forms, it's now accessible across all modules, including forms listings, info box APIs, and automation scheduler.
So yeah,
that's not listing workflows.
I'm sorry?
Well, I think that they didn't, this description doesn't include workflows available in, right? Forms, listings, info box APIs, and automation scheduler.
Yes, so our documentation doesn't point out that it's available in workflows, but we've just demonstrated it is available in workflows.
Okay, good.
So that's a good thing. So so this was available in a limited way prior, and now it's available across all modules. So I guess this documentation isn't wrong, since it says all modules including. So it's available wherever you can use an action.
Even better.
All right. We are we are getting better and better at what we do. These this content that you're seeing here is we've been reorganizing our internal data for tracking all the development that we do, and the text that you're seeing here is AI generated from the work that we did. At least the base of it is, and so the fact that it says accessible across everything except or including, and it lists some, this would explain why we didn't pick up workflows, but it's taking a great burden off us to generate the base information, and then we edit it for completeness. So
okay. Well, I apologize for seeming to call attention to that. That wasn't my intention, but I appreciate the description of how that gets put together.
enhanced browser tab titles.
That's in configuration. You now have so your tab up there says new workflow. It's telling you where you are, as opposed to it used to just say the site. So it gave you the yep.
And so like if we go to SQL console, we see that we're in SQL
Yeah.
console or
Oh, that's really nice.
pages. So making more use of that. It's small but useful, especially for those of us who have 100 tabs open.
That's a welcome site.
Good. So we've covered it before, but probably the most it's always good to talk about the breaking changes. That if you've used version 125, the things that you've got to know to avoid getting into trouble in version 126. So you used to be able to the DNN API endpoint used to be a module, and it could be placed anywhere, and you could have lots of them. And this is no longer true. The only place that API endpoint exists is APIs. It's just called APIs now, and they're all here. So if you had the old way, if you used it, you could have different APIs in different places on your system. Now there's only one place to define them, and they're all here. Some of our clients have many APIs, and so that's probably makes it a little harder to manage trying to if you grouped them in different ways. But this was a simplification across the board. So now you can filter them by namespace or by name. You can also have a separate URL for them. That's probably one of the other changes. That's not a breaking change, but every API in the settings, this has article view count as the name of it, but you can, and by default it has the same name as the endpoint URL, but you can make that be different. So if you want that to define your own structure for calling APIs and give it your own naming scheme, which can include slashes and things like that. So that's a new thing. But yes, breaking change. The fact that there's only APIs. That's just something that you need to know about. And if you use that old structure, it's very important to read through this one. APIs used to have a way to call them that it was a nice long URL, and now when you call them, and for the longest time, we've supported a very short way to call them. So it's the name of your site /API/ this name. I don't recall the long one. We've covered it before in here, but the point is the old one is no longer supported. So if you've given out this API to an end outside your organization, you're going to have to update that with them. Let them know that it's changed. If you've used it internally in your code, that's going to stop working. It's going to give you an error message instead of the data that you expect. And this has bitten us as well. We've had some places where in our code we use the legacy endpoint, and so we've been going around trying to find and fix all of those. So that's an important one.
A nice thing that I want to make sure we mention is that we gave, it says the using legacy endpoint returns an error, and it's actually a really nice error. It tells you exactly what you need to change about the use of the API. So that's nice.
A quality error, yes.
Yep.
And we've been talking about forms. This very little used open in separate page. It hadn't been functioning correctly for several versions, and we've just eliminated that feature. So if you used it prior to version 1.22, it's not going to be, it doesn't work after 1.23, and it's not going to be there at 1.26. So those are the breaking changes. Nice. Anything else about 1.26? I'll just tell you, almost all of our internal systems have been updated to 1.26. The console, which you guys interact with to do, for example, to the most important function that we provide is support tickets, right? So where you sign in to do support tickets, that's still version 1.25. We're going to update that next week, but that one controls all of our licensing and things like that. So we want to make sure we get that one right. So we've got one more week on that one, but everything else internally has been, almost everything's been updated. You know, knowledge base I discovered. Yep, see you, Don. That wasn't updated, but all of our key systems are updated. We find it's been very reliable, and so we hope you find the same thing. We've been testing it exhaustively. This is part of why it's taken us so long to get it out. We really wanted to get it right, so hopefully that's what you'll find when you get there. Anyone with plans to upgrade or start down towards that path?
Yes, I will be doing some of that today.
Good. Well, any feedback you can give us, let us know. But I hope you find what I just said, that it's reliable and accurate, and as easy as a few clicks. So there was something on the chat here earlier. Oh, Ben, release notes, latest recommended DNN. We're taking on in our we have a DNN compatibility page, and we keep this updated for what version, but we are in the process of automating this to provide even better information. And in our next version, we're testing, I'll just point out how 1.27, we're doing that against 9.13.3. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 9.13.3.
Which I believe is the latest that's out. And I know a lot of you have been asking about 9.13.3. Again, it's not that it won't work, it's that we haven't tested against it. So you're welcome to go up to it. But we want to do that. We're intentionally keeping release 1.27 small. You can come back and poke me with a stick when a year later, but I suspect this will be just a few months before we get this out, not a year. We're trying to keep it very small, and we are testing against 9.13.3. So that next version it'll be out. There's also an internal discussion going on about what should be the minimum version that we support. 9.9.1 was several years ago, and so we want to encourage people to keep moving up in versions, to experience this in the as stable as possible, right? So I'd be interested in the opinions of this group. What should be the minimum DNN version that you would need us to support?
Since nobody's jumping in, I just real quick wanted to comment on what Jim just said. Just to be clear, you will be prompted as an option if to upgrade DNN to 9.11.2 if you're not there yet, but it's not required for 1.26. Is that correct, Dale? Am I saying that wrong?
Absolutely. I think we,
Yep.
in the past, we enforced, when something was required, we enforced it. We
Yeah.
didn't let it operate. And I assume we'll keep with that. There are times when, let's see, like this one, in order to get to 120, you had to have 990 or higher. So there are times when we will enforce it, but other times we'll just offer it. And again, my recommendation, you're going to be going through all the testing anyway for a new version, that taking both the DNN version and the Python app version at the same time gives you, I mean, you're already investing the effort. That'll be a spot to do it. And the upgrade experience is very straightforward. If you haven't done it, you still have to, it'll bring you to the DNN upgrade screen, which requires a username and password, a super user username and password, but then it just installs it and you're done. It's very easy. So opinions on minimum DNN version that you need supported? I'll just say personally, I'm leaning towards 9.11.2. Internally, we've seen that, and 9.12 is being discussed. But so many of our clients, I believe, are on 9.11 that, and that aside from issues with the file manager, 9.11.2 has been very stable, and we've got a lot of miles on it. So that's the reason for my recommendation.
I'll just speak from a educational / governmental standpoint. There's a relatively new, I should say, push to follow what's known as NIST standards. It's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And those standards basically say that as new versions come out of any software that you use, it's highly recommended, if not enforced, that you have a certain time frame, which is a relatively small window, depending on your agency and your policies, to upgrade to that version. And if not, document why or whatnot. So just giving you a heads up that if you have educational and/or government agencies as clients, keeping up to date with the latest DNN version is going to become more and more crucial for these agencies to be NIST compliant.
So that's there's two sides to this discussion, and on that one, on the maximum supported or tested, we know we could have done better on that one. That this has been this long release cycle, and 9 of ours versus 9.13 being out and finally getting through a couple of releases getting better and stable. We should do better. It shouldn't be months for us to get to that spot. So we agree that, and so getting to the max and getting to the most recent release is what we're about. Again, it's just not tested in most cases. I would suspect it would work. It's just we want to make sure that you have a great experience. To me, that what you just said, Ben, it kind of argues on the other side that you don't really care what the minimum is that we publish. You want us to get to the maximum.
In a manner of speaking, I mean, it's just, I mean, like I said, I'm not the type of person that likes to jump to the latest version as soon as it comes out. I always like to see what happens.
Yes.
But NIST standards does have this thing, like in some cases, I think it really relies on the policy of your agency, but Like in some cases, you have 90 days from the time that a release of a software that you use is announced. You have 90 days to institute that version. And that's just a standard. So it depends. Everything's a little bit different for each agency, and some may adopt a shorter window. Sometimes you can adopt a larger window, and you might still be NIST compliant, but whatever the policy is, I think moving forward, being that a lot of agencies are now really security conscious and whatnot, and trying to follow these now NIST standards, you may hear more often, people saying that they really want to comfortably be known that they can move up to the latest version of the platform without any issues.
So for people who aren't following, there's a lot of people who or there are those clients that are running Plant an App and perhaps running older versions, and they're not that excited about and perhaps concerned based on their use for it to upgrade. But so that's why we have to consider what our minimums are. I think if you ask our development team, they'd like it to be only the very latest. It's the easiest for them, less things to think about and support. But so we're trying to find that happy medium. Anyway, I'm not hearing anyone scream and saying it's okay that I must have this current minimum 991. I didn't hear anybody object to coming up into 911. So if you have an opinion about it that you haven't expressed, please reach out to me. I would love to bring that to our discussion, but our minimums will be moving up, trying to support a year back, for example, but not every release that's ever been out. Okay. So that's a full episode. We didn't get to playbook, but we got to some very good topics. We'll come back and do this again next week. So do join us. In the meantime, happy low coding. Stick around for Afterglow if you were so inclined.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Patrick.